You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Good morning once again, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. We had ourselves another very impactful week of NFL football, and we're going to discuss it all right now, diving into all of this week's actions, ranking all 32 teams from worst to first. We had blowouts, we had upsets, we had games that went about as expected. There's a lot to get into, so just comment down below. Let me hear your thoughts and opinions on my rankings. Let me hear your power rankings, and let's begin with the bottom four teams here in the NFL, starting off with 32-29. At the very bottom here, the Carolina Panthers sitting where they are, and actually all four of these teams staying put despite what happened within all four of these teams here. The Patriots staying at number 31, the Washington Commanders at number 30, and then the Arizona Cardinals at number 29. Now, I spent a lot of time going back and forth over whether I thought the Carolina Panthers should maybe move up and jump the Patriots here, but despite the fact that they won a game 9-7 in what was torrential downpours against the division rival in the Atlanta Falcons, and the Patriots coming off of a loss that honestly looked closer than it actually was just because of some circumstances late in the game, I will say that I do think the Carolina Panthers rightfully belong at that number 32 spot, and the way the season's going to kind of go, I don't really think at any point I will be making much of a case for them to move beyond that 32. I do think that they are the definitive worst team in the NFL at this very moment, and arguably maybe the Falcons, but I will say that if I was to put up a fantasy match between both the Panthers and the Patriots, I'd probably take the Patriots 9 times out of 10, so hence why I have them sitting the way they are. Patriots at 31. Tough loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, one I kind of expected to see. I will say the score looked closer than I thought it was going to wind up being at the end of the game, but ultimately, if it wasn't for a Kadarius Toney interception late in that game, and yes, I do say Kadarius Toney interception because at this point, I don't really know if I can blame Patrick Mahomes for the amount of mistakes he's making, but yes, if it was not for that tipped pick, the game probably gets a little bit more out of hand, so we'll keep the Patriots at 31 despite a closer than I would say expected result against the Chiefs. The Commanders at number 30, I do got to give them credit. They pulled Sam Howell late in that game there. Jacoby Brissett came in, sparked some life in that offense there, got Terry McLaurin involved late, and ultimately made it a one-score game, but it was, for the most part, an ugly matchup here. But you have to wonder, maybe do they roll with Jacoby Brissett the next few weeks here and kind of see how he fares going forward? I don't know what his status is going to be with the team going into the offseason now, but this is another one of those teams down in the dumps and finding themselves on the losing end once again, but making things a little bit interesting as they have in a handful of their losses this year. And the Cardinals at number 29, I will say this, that for a team that is basically just they've been looking towards next season since about week 8 or 9 at this point, before even Kyler Murray got back. I will say I'm impressed with the fight that they put up here, putting up 29 points against a 49ers team that maybe kind of defensively, at the very least, took their foot off the gas maybe and let up just a little bit because of how far apart the game was at certain stages. Maybe that's why they got the 29 on there, but for them to put 29 up on the 49ers and at least fight to the very finish, I felt like keeping them at number 29 was a good spot there. Not going to drop them below the Commanders, the Patriots, or the Panthers. Moving into the next four at number 28, the Los Angeles Chargers. And what you saw this past Thursday Night Football was a culmination of events that have been building and building and building for the last, I want to say, at least 2 years now. And it was a team that flat out gave up on their head coach, especially knowing that Justin Herbert was done for the season. And finally, as I've been rooting for quite some time now, the firing of Brandon Staley. It sucks for the person, Brandon Staley, but something that needed to be happened for the coach of Brandon Staley. I'm very excited to see what the future of the Chargers looks like going forward now, and I'll be interested to see how things kind of look the next few weeks here, but I can't imagine it's going to be very great. So strap in, Chargers fans. I think we're looking at a pretty ugly end of season, but I'm looking forward to a post-Brandon Staley era and somebody hopefully offensive-minded that will try their absolute hardest to just take advantage of and build on what Justin Herbert brings to the table and some of the talent that they have on this team altogether from both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. At number 27, the New York Jets, an ugly 30-0 loss, another goose egg for the Jets this season. Listen, that game went about as kind of how I expected. I thought maybe the Jets would find some points, but I did not really expect them to compete too much with the Miami Dolphins here. The Miami Dolphins did everything they needed to, even minus Tyreek Hill, taking advantage of mismatches, especially on the ground. Raheem Mostert had himself a day. Jalen Waddle did an excellent job stepping up in Tyreek Hill's absence. The defense, of course, letting that goose egg be laid on the scoreboard, doing an excellent job just in every facet of the game. Total domination over a lesser opponent, as you should be doing. And the Jets are what the Jets are right now, a team that it has a tattered offensive line, no quarterback at this very moment. I'm very curious to see if the Jets do opt to have Aaron Rodgers play, if he really wants to play that badly, just to kind of get some reps going and maybe build some hope for next season. Very curious to see if that happens there because I know he's been pushing hard, but I'm kind of leaning on the side of there's really no point in letting Aaron Rodgers play and risk further injury to his Achilles. However severe that injury was, I don't really know at this point because him coming back this soon would be absolutely insane. However, part of me, as the football fan I am, does kind of want to see his return. For his health and safety, I don't really want to see him come back, but selfishly, as a football fan, I am very interested in seeing how that plays out. At 26, the Tennessee Titans, and I mean, talk about just having an opportunity and letting it slip away, going up against your division rival in the Houston Texans without their starting quarterback. Defensively, really strong performance in the first half, and honestly, like even into the third quarter, it was just late. You kind of fell apart, and it's not even really the defense's fault. The offense just, didn't really hold up its end of the bargain in this game here. And granted, the Texans defense has been a pretty formidable unit so far this season, especially in some games that, they're holding teams to sub 20 numbers. So, you're not facing a slouch of a defense, but I really thought that you had an opportunity to take advantage of a division rival and not necessarily ruin their playoff chances, but definitely play some spoiler for them at the very least and make things more difficult. But you fall to Case Keenum, and at this point, the Titans, they're out of the playoff race, and I think that there's going to be some questions as to whether Mike Vrabel is going to be back. I'm curious to see if they just continue to build around Will Levis, if they maybe explore some other options there. I don't know how sold they are. I do personally think that it's something that they should stick with, at least for the next season, and kind of see where it goes there, because Will Levis, for what it's worth, has shown some flashes. Even with the hiccups and struggles he's had, he is a rookie and somebody that probably wasn't expecting to play this year by both himself and the Titans, but I'm interested in looking forward to seeing what this team looks like next year, because you have DeAndre Hopkins, who I know wants to be with a contender. That was kind of the whole point of him going to Tennessee. You have Derrick Henry, who a lot of people thought may get traded at the trade deadline, and I kind of feel like was wronged a little bit, whether he wanted to stay there or not. I feel like he deserved the opportunity to be on a contender this year, so it was unfortunate he didn't get moved. So we're really looking forward to seeing what the Titans look like going forward. And then at number 25, the Atlanta Falcons. Let me just say, this is a team that has continually let me down at every turn possible this season. I said in my picks just a few days ago, if there was one team I would pick to absolutely blow their game against a Carolina Panthers team that has a one win on the season going into that matchup, it was the Atlanta Falcons. And I still picked the Atlanta Falcons anyways to win that game. And rain aside, listen, both teams are playing in it. I don't want to hear the excuses. I cannot believe that that offense could not muster up more than a single score against a Panthers team that had one win going into their matchup. I know their pass defense over there in Carolina has been a little bit better than some people maybe realize, but that was just a god-awful showing, and I'm half expecting to see an era beyond Arthur Smith following the end of this season. At number 24, we're looking at the New York Giants. At number 23, the Las Vegas Raiders jumping 5 spots with a massive blowout win over the Chargers this past Thursday Night Football. We have the Bears at number 22 and then the Minnesota Vikings at number 21. The Giants basically meeting their match and kind of finding themselves in the result that I was somewhat expecting, just based off of how good the Saints defense has been this year and the hype and excitement around Tommy DeVito and everything that they might have been building over there offensively kind of came to a screeching halt. And again, not something I was super surprised against, and I even talked about that when I was making my predictions for the week. The Saints defense is really good, and I felt like the Giants were maybe a little bit on bought time with what was kind of going on there. Now, This isn't to say they're dead in the water and that's it. Tommy DeVito situation is done, because no, I am very curious what the Giants do going into next year. I don't care if they're saying that the starter next season is going to be Daniel Jones. I know that they have a ton of money that they need to pay that guy, but there is not really a lot besides last season and even the performance last season. I don't really know is worth $40 million per year out of Daniel Jones. I will be very curious how the quarterback situation gets handled going forward, because I think Tommy DeVito, again, despite the struggles he had this past week against a really good Saints defense, has made a strong case, and he's got 3 more games to continue to build that case to have a legit opportunity as quarterback 1 over there in New York. And he clearly has a lot of New York behind him based off of just the amount of noise I've been listening to coming out of there the last few weeks. At 23, the Raiders going in and just basically dismantling the Chargers, taking advantage of, again, a team that I said quit on their head coach, especially following the loss of Justin Herbert. It felt like the Chargers were ready for a reset, and that game got so out of hand so quickly, and the Raiders just took advantage of it, and I'm surprised they even showed mercy late in that game, so good on them for doing so. I really felt like that Raiders team was going to just run the table and push past 70 points. I would have loved to see it, because at some point, just desserts need to be served, and I was ready for Brandon Staley and his Chargers to be served it. Not so much the Chargers themselves, but more so Brandon Staley. And here we are now, massive victory. Raiders dropped 63 points. Do I think that this is a lightning in a bottle moment? Kind of. This is not something that I think we're going to see from the Raiders again, at least towards the rest of this season, and maybe even in the next year. I don't know, but I like what I saw. I love the effort. Antonio Pierce led his troops through battle and just absolutely dominated. And it was a fun one to watch, even if the game itself was a little bit of a snooze fest, because the result was decided literally in the first quarter. At number 22, the Chicago Bears, and I feel like this is kind of the story of them all season long. Just too close, but not close enough. Just the defense has been awesome to watch. And if they can get their offense sorted these next few weeks, next year is going to be exciting. I'm really curious to hear from Bears fans what you all think needs to be done regarding the quarterback situation now, because we've had some really strong performances from Justin Fields. We've had some performances where you go, nah, maybe they should look towards a quarterback. I want to know what Chicago is kind of thinking right now. So if you're a Bears fan, you let me know. Where are you kind of sitting right now? Because this Bears defense has been a juggernaut since bringing in Montez Sweat, and I think he has been a massive addition for the unit and worth every single penny, and at this rate probably should have been paid more. So I'm excited for the future of the Bears, especially with what that defense is starting to grow into, because you have some really young guys that are really starting to emerge there as well, beyond Montez Sweat, of course, and all the additions you made this offseason I feel like are finally starting to pay off, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor. It's just the offense. We got to get things sorted. Offensive line still needs some work. You could definitely use another skill player over there, in my opinion. And quarterback, I'm still somebody that thinks with the right coaching, maybe you get a better Justin Fields. I'm not too sure, though. Again, Chicago Bears fans, let me know. And then at 21, the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, you're basically leading the Bengals all game long. All you need to do is make a stop late in the game, and ultimately you come up short. And man, it's tough, because you're playing with Nick Mullins, and your defense is playing pretty well for the most part up until late, and that's just because the offense kind of slows down and makes things difficult for them. Man, this is a Vikings team that I hate to see them where they are, because man, you didn't have Justin Jefferson for such a long stretch. You lost Kirk Cousins, and you have someone like Danielle Hunter who's having an absolute season. And you're probably not going to be able to pay him, because you have to pay Justin Jefferson. I don't really know. And Kirk Cousins, because his contract is up at the end of the season. This is unfortunate, because if Kirk Cousins is still here and you didn't lose Justin Jefferson for as long as you did, damn, this team could have been something special. And I hate that for Minnesota. But here they are, sitting at number 21, coming off of a really tough blown loss to a Bengals team that doesn't even have their starting quarterback. And I know you don't as well. I get it. But it felt like this was a real good shot to maybe keep some hopes alive, and you just couldn't get it done. At number 20, Pittsburgh Steelers are falling 3 spots here. The Packers dropping 6 down to 19 following a really ugly loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where the defense just kind of fell apart. At number 18, we're looking at the New Orleans Saints. And then number 17, we have ourselves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Steelers, at this point, despite their record and them potentially having a better defense than a large majority of the teams hanging around them right now, the offense has just, it feels like it's dead in the water. And at this point, I thought that it was almost like a sure-in thing that we were going to see, Mike Tomlin above 500, but there is a very real possibility that the Steelers lose out their remaining 3 games here. And that's not something that I'm saying to try and doubt Mike Tomlin or go after Steelers fans or anything like that. It's just when you look at the schedule and the way this offense has played, 7-10 is a very realistic reality for Pittsburgh, and I think there's a good shot we see Mike Tomlin's first sub-500 season. The offense is dead. I hear Steelers fans calling for Tomlin's job after chanting for fire Matt Canada for the first half of the season, it felt like. Now the noise is starting to focus on Mike Tomlin, and listen, he's been great in Pittsburgh, don't get me wrong, and he's getting snatched up wherever very quickly. As soon as he's let go, he's getting snatched up within the next week or two, without question. But it almost feels like maybe it's time for a change of scenery for both the Steelers and for Mike Tomlin. The Packers at number 19, getting served a bit of humbled pie from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a couple spots above them now following that loss. The defense, man, there have been some games where the defense has looked really good, but there have also been some games, and not even just this season, but over the last couple of years now, and I've definitely seen the noise from Packers fans for the last few years about it, where the Packers defense just becomes like a sand sieve, especially against the pass, and even against the run at times, I should say it the other way, especially against the run and even against the pass at times. They can't stop a nosebleed in the run game, and they let Baker Mayfield basically have the best game in his career since probably leaving Cleveland at this point now. And you let Baker Mayfield throw 5 touchdowns on you. I don't really know. Listen, I like Baker, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's put up that kind of performance in any time recently. So I don't really know what to make of the Packers now at this point, because at one point I had them pushing towards the top 10 in the NFL, and after the blown loss this week and just kind of the situation that they're looking where the offense has fizzled out a bit and the defense feels like it's regressing, not quite sure the playoff hopes that we were talking about a few weeks ago are very much alive anymore. I know they're still sitting at 6-8. There's definitely still a possibility if they win out and some things fall their way, but it feels like the Packers are trending in the wrong direction at the wrong time. At number 18, the New Orleans Saints, defensively, like I talked about when we were going over the Giants, what can I say? They did what they had to do. You go in against a young quarterback and you make life just hell for them. And the offense, minus Chris Olave, looked pretty good. Maybe they're taking advantage of an exhausted Giants defense because the offense wasn't really doing a ton and wasn't really moving a lot, and they were on the field a lot, but I've got to give credit to the offense. This is a group that I've called out a lot this year, and minus Chris Olave, I was a little bit concerned because I was like, this might be a game that the Saints blow here. And sure enough, you have guys stepping up left and right, people that you probably don't even know their names of, catching passes for touchdowns and even just making big plays. And I'm very, very impressed by what they did. A very complete game from New Orleans, a team that's still fighting for the divisional spot in the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are sitting above them. Not quite sure the Saints have a shot, though, because the Bucs, after a ugly stretch, they started 3-1, and it felt like they lost 5 games in a row. I forget what the exact number was, but they lost a handful of games in a row, are now starting to catch fire again. And now, at the right time, you have a shot with 3 games left to win your division, even if it's not with the prettiest of records in the world, and go on to represent the NFC South in the playoffs. And I've got to say, that maybe 3 weeks ago was not a realistic conversation I thought I was going to be having here, but I've been impressed. And like I said, Baker Mayfield, money, really connecting with his wide receivers in this game here. The running game having emerged in Tampa Bay the last few weeks is also something to keep an eye on, because this is one of the league's worst running offenses in the NFL. But the last few weeks, they've really started to figure it out on the ground, and I think that's going to be a difference maker for them in this final stretch run here in the fight for the NFC South. So keep an eye on Tampa Bay. I wouldn't be too shocked. They're getting hot at the right time. You have a Panthers team that's eliminated. You have a Falcons team that, even though they're not eliminated, feels like they're eliminated because they lost to a team that's eliminated. And you have the Saints who, again, great defense, but the offense has been so inconsistent. I feel like I'm buying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now for the NFC South. Moving into the top half of the league, though, at number 16, we're looking at the Seattle Seahawks. Massive, massive victory on Monday Night Football here. One that, with Drew Lock under center, I thought had no shot of happening. I made my pick for the Seahawks to win, expecting them to get the W with Geno Smith playing. I thought that there was going to be the possibility that he did play, and he was active. However, the defense in Seattle, for the struggles that they've had, did an excellent job against an Eagles team that's kind of been struggling offensively themselves and shutting things down, and I could not be more impressed with what we got. Drew Lock, especially late in the game, fourth career game-winning drive, and it was nails. Just you throw to your best playmakers in those type of situations, and Drew Lock showing he has absolutely no fear in that situation there. Massive play to DK Metcalf. Touchdown pass was also awesome as well. You had the defense coming up with the deep interception late in the game to seal things and finish it off. Very impressed in that game because I really did not expect a Seahawks victory. First off, even with Geno Smith under center. Secondly, when I found out Drew Lock was going to be the quarterback, I really thought, okay, this is kind of a dead to rights Eagles victory here. But no, Pete Carroll, having not lost to the Eagles since taking over in Seattle, continues a streak. I believe the number is now 9-0 since joining the Seahawks in 2008. And then at number 15, the Los Angeles Rams here, moving down a spot despite their victory, which in the early going felt like a rout. And then Jacoby Brissett comes in and things got a little bit scary. And you argue, okay, they just won though, that you want to see them win those types of games. That situation should have absolutely never happened with the way that game had played out. There is no reason that the backup quarterback should be stepping in, whether you think Jacoby Brissett or Sam Howell is the better quarterback of the two or not. That's the conversation I'm not having. The point being, Sam Howell's the number one guy. He's getting the number one reps. Jacoby Brissett at this point, very viable backup quarterback, a journeyman guy who's found some decent success here or there and has been a starter a handful of times in his career. You had that game won, 28-7 and somehow, some way, you let Jacoby Brissett come in and not even spark a fire, but like essentially set off an explosion on offense to nearly come back and tie up the game late. I like the Rams still. I think there is a good shot that they make the playoffs with how good they've been playing as of late, and they're still winning games. But that was just slightly concerning because if you want to make a deep playoff run, you shouldn't be letting teams like the Washington Commanders come back on you late, because if that's any other team with a better unit on offense, that comeback might get completed and you wind up losing that game. At number 14, the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 3-game losing streak now. They're sitting at 8-6. They were at 8-3 with the world in their hands. And now, where are they? In my opinion, of the 3 8-6 teams that are currently sitting in the AFC South, at the bottom of that pecking order, I'm a little bit concerned. I think the ankle injury is affecting Trevor Lawrence. His throws in that game were way off at times. It was not good. And you could even see in the way he moves, it's not nearly as quick as he has been in the past. And I'm starting to wonder if not giving him some time to rest was the right call, because at this point, you've lost your last 3 games anyways. You've just had your star quarterback, who's clearly dealing with an injury, playing on a bum ankle, and it's not helping. So starting to get a little bit of concern. The defense still hanging on despite a slower offensive performance, but you put up one singular touchdown in that game, you lose 23-7, and I'm concerned about Trevor Lawrence right now. And if the injury doesn't heal to where it needs to be, the Jaguars are now in danger of losing what was a division that was theirs to lose, and they're about to lose it at this point, and I'm really concerned about the way they're trending right now. Again, 3 straight losses, not good. Denver Broncos can kind of join them in that concern party now because of their last 3 games, they are 1-2, and I think it's worth mentioning that between the run that they had of victories, they only had 2 wins on the road, and you're now looking at a really tough blowout loss to the Dolphins to the Lions to the Jets. Like, they have some really suspect blowout losses that I'm starting to have a hard time getting ahead of, or just like putting behind me and still trying to find the good in this team. It's not to say that they're dead, because they're not. There's still plenty of opportunity for them in the AFC with the playoff picture being wide open, but I don't know if they can hang with the best of them. And like, I know that they got wins over the Chiefs and over the Bills, but the Chiefs were at their home when that happened, and the Chiefs have been having some problems offensively. Once they bench Kadarius Toney, I think they'll be okay. The Bills, they caught them at the right time where they were in the situation of trying to sort out their offense. And do I think they still beat the Bills today if they play again? I don't know. I know that's a hypothetical, and that's kind of what I'm basing this huge drop-off on, but you dropped 2 of your last 3, and I'm not seeing the spark from this team that I was seeing a few weeks ago, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried about them now. So they're 500. They still have plenty of opportunity, but they're one of those teams that's approaching, you might be on the outside looking in at like number 8, and that would suck for what has been a solid bounce back for this team. But a lot of their wins over the last couple of months have been wins at home, minus like their victory over the Bills on the road. Coming in at number 12, we're looking at the Indianapolis Colts. At number 11, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. At number 10, we're looking at the Houston Texans. And at number 9, we have ourselves the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Colts at number 12, getting a big victory on Saturday over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, I thought the Colts were going to win. I did not expect a 30-13 routing the way that thing turned out there, but absolutely taking it to what has been a pretty impressive Pittsburgh Steelers defense for the majority of the season. And then on top of that, defensively, I mean, listen, the Steelers are in a really ugly place offensively right now. And I'm not going to sit here and, toot the Colts horde for doing what they did against Pittsburgh, but the Colts defense has let a lot of teams move, and for them to come in and basically make things look as bad as it has been in Pittsburgh, if not maybe even a little bit worse, I've got to tip my cap to that. So great win by them. They're 8-6 right now, well in the thick of the AFC South race right now. 8-6 with a backup quarterback since week 5 when Anthony Richardson went down. Shane Steichen has got to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year with what he's been doing all season long. There's a handful of candidates, don't get me wrong, but Shane Steichen is definitely in the thick of that conversation, because we have been talking about a team that's been running with Gardner Minshew for the large majority of the season, and this was supposed to be the Anthony Richardson show. So, I mean, tip my cap to Shane Steichen. Defense looked great. Offense performed well above my expectations against a Pittsburgh defense that's not really letting a ton of teams score right now. So hats off to Indy. You're well in the fight for the AFC South right now, and in my opinion, have a good shot of potentially pulling off the victory in that AFC South. Right above them at number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, who kind of gave them a whooping not too long ago. But the Bengals on a 3-game winning streak right now, also in the thick of the AFC playoff picture. It is crowded in the AFC right now, and I'm very excited to see how things shake out. And with the Bengals team right now that has Jake Browning under center, and they're averaging more points with Jake Browning at quarterback than they were with Joe Burrow at quarterback, I think that just about sums up this NFL season. It has been a wonky, sideways, whacked out year with some of the craziest results I think I can possibly remember since I've started watching the NFL. It's really anyone's ball game each and every single week, and the Bengals to step up both offensively and defensively and rally around Jake Browning, and Zach Taylor to be putting the games together that he has been for him offensively. It's a thing of beauty. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now, and they could have been dead to rights without Joe Burrow, but here they are fighting for a legitimate spot in the playoffs, and again, averaging more points offensively with Jake Browning under center than when they had Joe Burrow under center. It just makes no sense to me, but I feel like that sums up this season in a nutshell. At number 10, the Houston Texans. I've got to give DeMeco Ryans so much credit. Another guy who is more than deserving of the Coach of the Year award, because this is a Texans team that nobody expected to be competing at all this year. This was going to be a rebuild, the beginning of the rebuild. You know, you have a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback, a lot of just like what feels like cast-offs and castaways and just people that nobody wanted, some older guys sprinkled in here or there with a lot of young talent. And this team is competing with Case Keenum under center while CJ Stroud was out with a concussion. I mean, the defense over there is leaps and bounds beyond where I thought they were going to be. And I know that they were a solid unit last year, all things considered, but for them to be where they're at right now, holding teams down to, you know, under 20 points, to be able to come away with victories despite not having your quarterback under center. Listen, if Shane Steichen's not winning Coach of the Year, DeMeco Ryans, if he winds up getting it, I'm fine with it. And again, Colts fans speaking here, totally okay with it. The work that DeMeco Ryans and his staff have done over there has been unbelievable to watch. And I did not give the Texans much of a chance going into that game minus CJ Stroud. And boy, did they make me look stupid. So I'll eat my words on that one. And again, tipping my cap to another young head coach in DeMeco Ryans and what he's doing over there with his team. And then at number 9, the Cleveland Browns. The ghost of Joe Flacco continues to reign terror over the NFL. The Browns may have found a quarterback in what felt like a retired quarterback just a few weeks ago. And here they are, 9-5, one of the best defenses in the NFL. And Joe Flacco is dealing, like absolutely dealing. And it makes no sense. But here we are. To think that the Browns forked over 250 or $35 million, $235 million. I knew there's a 3 in there somewhere. $235 million guaranteed to a quarterback who's played like 11 games since they signed him, if that. And the answer was Joe Flacco all this time. He's got the talent around him, some great wide receivers, a great O-line that definitely had some struggles against what has been a very aggressive defensive front over there in Chicago since they got Montez Sweat at the trade deadline. But overall, great performance, and I'm here for it. If there's some sort of Cinderella run with the Browns and Joe Flacco at age, 38, 39 years old, I'm here for it. He's got the brains. He's a savvy vet. He's proved he can win it before, and he's got a fantastic defense backing him up. And the last time he had a fantastic defense backing him up, just saying, he won a Super Bowl. I don't know. This is the NFL in 2023. I don't know. Moving into the top 8, though, of the NFL, the best of everyone else. At number 8, we're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles dropping 4 spots with their tough loss to the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football. We have the Dallas Cowboys dropping 4 spots here after getting a whooping against the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs move up a couple of spots, and then the Detroit Lions jump up 4 spots with a monumental win, and a much-needed one to maintain their control of the NFC North against the Denver Broncos. The Eagles, they're broken right now. They are absolutely broken right now. And maybe it has to do with Jalen Hurts being sick. Possibly. I don't really know. But I will say this. Defensively, this team has regressed over the last month, and it's not getting any better. And that's where the real concern lies. The offensive struggles, also a bit concerning, but they keep finding ways to move. And I feel like maybe they put up more points if Jalen Hurts isn't fighting off whatever it is he's fighting off. And maybe the result and outcome of this game is a little bit different. But for the defense to have fallen off the way it has, especially against the run in the last month, averaging like 150 yards plus on the ground, this is not good, because the secondary and just the defense against the pass all season long has not been great. The defense that we saw last year, which was annihilating people up front, they are missing Javon Hargrave. I know they have some really young, talented guys there, but they're missing Javon Hargrave and the pressure that he helped bring from the interior. There is a lot to be concerned about with Philadelphia, and we're starting to see the cracks in the armor. They were the best for a large majority of the season now, but we're starting to see the wear and tear, I feel like, kind of get to them, and I'm a little bit concerned. They're still very much a playoff team, still better than a large majority of the teams in the NFL, but Philly fans, like, let's be honest for a second. There has got to be some concern there, right? Like, absolutely. At number 7, A lot of the same could be said about the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, they got their asses whooped again. They do a lot of ass whooping, but they also get their asses whooped too. And it's kind of crazy to see this happen because, listen, the Cardinals kind of dealt one to them early in the season. Obviously, remember the 49ers. Now the Buffalo Bills, like, give me a break. You're 3-4 on the road. Why can't you buy a victory when you're visiting other teams? I really thought that even though that they were underdogs in that game, I really thought Dallas could come in and get the job done. I was all for it. Believe me, and I don't hate Dallas. I do not. But very, very disappointed with the performance we saw from them this week. The conversation around Dak Prescott and the MVP award and all that feels like that kind of went out the window as well. I don't really know what to make of Dallas because it felt like they were starting to really round out. Like they kind of put the 49ers loss behind them and they were starting to really kind of figure themselves out. But they struggle against the run, and offensively, if they get shut down, it's usually ugly. And then the defense just kind of starts to let up. And I don't know. Listen, the Cowboys are a great team. One of the best in the NFL. I have them as number 7, but divisional round knockout is like spelt all over this, and I don't like it. The Chiefs at number 6, moving up a couple of spots here, kind of benefiting from the fact that the Cowboys and the Eagles dropped here. I mean, I don't really know if you want to call a 10-point win over the Patriots really much to be jumping up on the boards about, but you're benefiting from teams that are dropping below you here. But I will say the score, again, a little bit closer than I think it should have been. I need to see Kadarius Toney not be catching passes from Patrick Mahomes anymore. And I hate to be somebody that calls for like people's jobs or anything like that, but I am convinced that if he is continuing to play for them, and I know he's one of their leading receivers, he's going to cost them a playoff game. You cannot have this many mistakes happen to you in a season, or happen by you, to you, whatever you want to call it, and keep your job. I don't know. It's crazy the amount of times I have witnessed Kadarius Toney blow situations for the Chiefs. It's unbelievable. And yet somehow the Chiefs are still sitting at 9-5 despite all the best efforts of him to maybe not have that be the case. If they can sort that out, this team looking good, bounce back victory, much needed victory over a lesser opponent in Gillette. Not the greatest of weather, I know. It got, and it wasn't bad, but it's not like it was raining until like after the game was pretty much over. But we got to sort the Kadarius Toney situation out. That's basically my biggest takeaway from this team right now. The Lions jumping up to number 5 here. This was a big win, but also very much a statement victory. There was a good amount of people voicing the strong possibility that Denver could pull off the upset. I was even one of them. But for Detroit to come in and stomp out the Broncos the way they did and basically put an end to what was kind of a hot run that they were having over the last couple of months here, that was much needed. And they dominated from start to finish. It got ugly very quickly. They never let off the gas, and they never really let the Broncos find ways to get back in. And I know that there was like a few plays at the goal line that maybe, you want to argue whether they were touchdowns or not. It doesn't even matter. You give the Broncos 14 more points, it's the result's still a Detroit Lions win by a significant margin. So Lions looked really good here. I'm still concerned about them in some instances, but at this point, like, the way this season has gone in the NFL, and you look at the teams that I have below them right now, the Chiefs have some wild losses. The Cowboys, again, have been blown out twice. The Eagles have, 3 times. The Eagles have been blown out twice. There's a lot to like unpack with the way this season has shaken out. And the Lions have a blowout loss, maybe even 2 at this point. I could be wrong. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I will say that there is a ton of talent. And when the Lions are on, they're on. And I like them on more than I do some of the other teams when they're on. So I feel good with Detroit at number 5, at least for right now. If you want to argue they maybe should be a little bit lower, go for it. But I'm okay with Detroit at number 5, at least for right now, all things considered with the teams around them too. And then moving into the top 4 to wrap up the power rankings. At number 4, we're looking at the Buffalo Bills moving up 4 spots. The Dolphins moving up a couple of spots here up to number 3. The Ravens staying put at number 2, and the 49ers staying put at number 1. The Bills. This is a fixed offense. The run game against Dallas is exactly what I have been pounding the table about since I started my podcast like almost 3 years ago. 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't know how long I've been doing this now. But I specifically remember, because I started around the AFC Championship a few years back when the Bills and the Chiefs play. So that'll tell you how long ago I started doing this. And I was pounding the table then and during the offseason about how this team needed to find a run game to help back Josh Allen up. If they can run the football like that the way they did, and James Cook can be as effective as he was, and the offense can open up the lanes the way they did more consistently, this Bills team can be a serious threat that people need to worry about. And right now, the Bills are starting to kind of build that momentum where they're the team, despite their record, you might not want to meet in January. They're looking very hot right now. And I think the firing of Ken Dorsey and the promotion of Joe Brady has been a godsend for this offense. Watch out for Buffalo going forward. They're getting hot at the right time. And this is a dangerous team, always has been, even with all the injuries that they've been dealing with on defense. That defense is good. That offense is finding a rhythm. And if they really get back into a true rhythm and now have a legitimate established run game on the back of James Cook, watch out. At number 3, the Miami Dolphins, blowing out the Jets, as they should. Big test for them coming up. Honestly, the next couple of weeks, because they have Dallas and they also have Baltimore in back-to-back weeks. So that is definitely the gauntlet that we're kind of waiting on for the Miami Dolphins here. Kind of a prove it or lose it type of situation for them, because if you drop even one of those games, it kind of hurts your chances at maybe claiming the number 1 seed. You basically have to win out. It's basically win or go home, not go home, but win or not be number 1 for both the Ravens and the Dolphins. But I feel like the Ravens have proved themselves a little bit more than the Dolphins have, whereas the Dolphins, for all the conversation that surrounded Dallas and them not beating a team above 500, have you looked at the people that the Miami Dolphins have beaten and lost to and the final scores of those games and how they've shaken out? Miami has yet to beat a team above 500, and I feel like we're not really hearing that conversation around Miami the way we did Dallas. I know it's fun, to poke the bear with Dallas, but the conversation needs to be had about Miami. So kind of a little bit of a mini gauntlet coming up here. Honestly, a legit gauntlet, because they have the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. 3 straight weeks, tough contests. This is basically make or break for them coming up. So keep an eye on Miami. The Ravens at number 2. Listen, you go into Jacksonville and you stomp them out. Injury aside from Trevor Lawrence, I've been preaching this for a while now. Baltimore is the best team in the AFC. They have been pretty much all season long, and I really have not wavered on that too much. I have thought that for quite some time. Lamar Jackson, he's a dude. He's going to get it done however he needs to get it done to help his team win. The wide receiver room over there in Baltimore is really starting to find themselves. I feel like I watched Rashad Bateman make a lot of really big plays this past week. You obviously have Odell, and Zay Flowers has been a stud. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar are both looking like solid replacements for the time being, minus David Andrews. They're a threatening team. Phenomenal defense. At this point, I'm having a hard time picking anyone besides Baltimore and San Francisco for the Super Bowl, and the 49ers at number 1. Listen, at this point, the Ravens are closing that gap. And if there's one thing that the Ravens or the 49ers have that the other don't, I would take the mobility of Lamar Jackson over what we have with San Francisco and their quarterback situation. And I believe in Lamar Jackson more than I do, despite how good Brock Purdy has been with San Francisco. But just the amount of skill talent that offense has over there in San Francisco is wild. So I think that they both have some strengths, both defensive juggernauts, absolutely dominant units. I would take either defense any given week. I don't really know who I would take over the other, because both have performed at such a high level. For me, it's like, I'll take the quarterback from Baltimore, but I really like the skill talent that they have over there in San Fran. So that's kind of what separates them. I think there's just a little bit more on the 49ers side, hence why they're still at number 1. But those are my power rankings. We're almost done the season. Things are wrapping up. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me hear your power rankings. That is it for me. I appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.